Want to build a feedback form in React that actually works? In this video, I'll show you how to create a clean, responsive comment form using React.js and JSON Server. Hey guys, my name is Behnam. You can call me Ben. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel and drop me a comment. Let's get started. All right, first things first, let's create our project folder. We'll call it comments. Then using the terminal, I open VS Code. Now I open VS Code's terminal and type npm create with @latest dot to create my React app. At the first step, choose React, then we use plain JavaScript since we won't be using TypeScript in this project. And for the first question, use roll down with, choose no. And for the second question, install with npm and start now, I choose no again. So here are your React snippets. Now there's one more step to go. We need to install our Node modules folder. Let's do that in the VS Code terminal by typing npm install. Run the React app using npm run dev. As you know, the React app usually runs on port 5173. Let's test the app. I open my browser and paste the link here so you can see the app is running. If you want to run your app on port 5173, that's totally fine. I normally run it on port 3000. So how can I change it? Go to the vit.config.js file in the root directory. Inside, define config and under plugins, add server. Open curly braces and add port 3000. So run the app using npm run dev again. Copy the link and paste here in Google Chrome. There you go. The app is now running on port 3000. All right, now we need to clean up our folders and files. We need to delete some files we don't need. Let's start with the assets folder, and then let's also delete app.css because we don't need it. And now let's go inside app.jsx and delete this snippet. All right, now we don't want to spend a lot of time creating the HTML and CSS for the project, since this is a React tutorial. So I've already created the HTML and CSS part of the project and deployed it into my GitHub. The link to this HTML CSS template is in the description, or you can simply type this URL and go directly to the template. As soon as you open the link, you'll find two files, index.html and style.css. Go into index.html. Copy this div with the class of app and drag it to the last closing div up above this ending body tag. All right, you need to create your React snippet. Type RAFCE to create your React snippet. If this phrase doesn't work for you, you probably don't have this extension in VS Code installed. You should install it. Nevertheless, you can simply type this snippet by hand. I erased this div, and an empty tag in React is a fragment, as you know. So I want to put my whole HTML code inside this fragment. Very well, you can see the UI of the project. However, it looks ugly because we haven't brought our CSS styling yet. So let's do it. Let's go to src folder, and inside index.css, let's clear everything inside that. Let's go to the GitHub page again, but this time open style.css. Copy the whole code and paste it inside index.css. Perfect. So the UI of project is now ready. Now we need to start creating our React app. Before starting, please add 20 pixels padding to the body tag. So this padding should be 100 pixels from top and bottom and 20 pixels from right and left. Now we can see these paddings on this side of the form and comments. It looks better now. As you can see, these buttons, our delete and edit buttons, currently have nothing inside them. I originally added trash and edit icons from Font Awesome, but those icons don't work in React the same way they do in a plain HTML template. To fix this, we'll need to install a package called React Icons. Let's open another terminal, and you can do that by running the following command: npm install React Icons. Once that is done, Let's open up package.json to make sure React Icons was successfully added. Perfect. As you can see, React Icons has been installed. To use the icons, we need to bring them into the project. At the top of the component, write import and inside curly braces include font_edit and font_alt. Then add from react-icons/fa, which means font awesome. Before placing the icons inside the buttons, let's make our code a little bit more clear. I'll add a comment here. This is our heading section, and this is our form, and I'll close the tag to make the code easier to read. Finally, this is the comment section. The buttons are placed inside this div. As you can see, we have two comment cards. Inside each comment card, there are two buttons, and inside each button, there's an I tag, which holds the icon. What I do is delete the I tag, and then we go to the top of the page, copy this font_edit, which is actually the icon for edit. Now we need a self-closing tag. So I create it, and I put font_edit inside this self-closing tag. Now we should do the same for delete button. I will copy font_alt, create a self-closing tag here, and there you go. As you can see, the buttons are working perfectly fine. Now we don't need two comments, so I'll delete one of them. One of them is enough as a sample. And now I think we are ready to make our form work. So let's start with our React code. Let me create another comment here. This is comment card. All right. To kick off our React app, we'll use the useState hook. Start by typing const, open the brackets, and then comments. Set comments, be careful, it should be capitalized, and then useState. When you hit enter, your editor should automatically add import useState from React at the top. If it doesn't, just add it manually because it has to be there. Then inside the parentheses, you should put an empty array. This array is going to hold our comments. By default, it should be empty. Now let's go for the next useState, const name, set name, useState, and the default value is going to be empty string. The next one, const text and set text, useState, and the default value empty string again. Const rating, set rating, useState, and the default value should be null. And the next one, const editing ID, set editing ID is equal to useState, and the default value should be null again. And const show error, set show error, and useState, and the default value should be false. Perfect. Now we are using useState to manage different pieces of state in our React app. Comments is an array that stores all the user submitted comments. Name holds the name of the person writing the comment. Text is the content of the comment coming from the text area input. Rating is a number from 1 to 5 that the user selects to rate something. And editing ID is used when we want to edit an existing comment. It helps us identify which comment is currently being edited. Show error is a boolean that tracks whether an error message should be shown. It starts off as false, and if something goes wrong, like a missing field or invalid input, we set it to true. Now let's start by creating the first step, which is the handle submit function, and to submit the form. Let me add the comment, submit the form. It's an arrow function, and we pass in E, which represents the event. Using this event, we're going to prevent the form from performing its default behavior. So what does a form normally do? When we submit a form, it sends a request to the server and refreshes the page. But in React, we don't want the page to reload. We want to handle this submission ourselves. So first we need to connect this function to the form. Let's go to the form tag, and inside the opening tag we add onSubmit is equal to an open curly braces handle submit. Now whatever we do inside the function will directly affect how the form behaves. That's why we use a method called preventDefault. We call this method on the event object e.preventDefault. Now, as you can see, I can click this button as many times as I want, and the page does not refresh. Now, after calling preventDefault, we need to add a condition to make sure the user doesn't leave any inputs empty. We start with if there's no name.trim, and I've already explained in a short video what trim does. It removes white spaces from both ends of string. So if there's no name or no text, or if the rating is null, we should call setShowError to true, since it's false by default. And then we need to return. Remember, we must return here because if these conditions aren't met, we don't want the form to continue or trigger any other logic. Right now, the error is hard-coded, so it shows up no matter what the user does. We need to make it dynamic, meaning the error should only appear if the user leaves the inputs empty when submitting the form. To do that, we need to go to the form tag because that's where the error message is placed, right below the submit button. Open curly braces and write show error and put double ampersand. It means if the show error is true, then open parentheses, and inside the parentheses you can put the div. So I'm gonna copy or cut the div and put it right here. So if the show error is true, it shows the error. If it's not, it will remain hidden. Now, if I click the submit button without filling in the inputs, the error message shows up just like we want. But there's one more step I'd like to add. If the user submits the form without filling in the inputs, the error should appear but then disappear after 5 seconds. I don't want it to stay there forever. So right before the return statement, I write set timeout. Now inside it, we call set show error, and then we change it to false, but after 5,000 milliseconds, which is actually 5 seconds. Now, if I submit the form without filling the inputs, the error shows up, but it goes away after 5 seconds. Perfect. Now, under the if statement, we create a comment, which is an object. Yes, our comment is an object. So we create a variable. Let's call it new comment. It has an ID, and the ID should be date.now. The ID needs to be unique, and this is our way of making sure it's 100% unique by using a timestamp. Next, we have the name. Don't forget to use the trim method on it. Then we do text.trim, and finally, rating. You don't need to give rating any value, just leave it as is. Now we want to take this new comment and add it to our array of comments. So we use set comments, and then we say prev, which refers to the previous state of the array. That previous state should stay the same. We're just adding new comment to it. Perfect. The next step is to set the name to an empty string, set the text to an empty string, set rating to null, and set show error to false. We need to do this. Otherwise, the user would have to manually erase the inputs every time they submit a comment. Now that our function is complete, we need to connect this comment object and its properties to the form. The first input is the name input. Inside the input tag, write value, and the value should be name. Let me organize the input a bit so it's easier to read. Okay, perfect. And then you need to give it an on change to make the input work, our function takes an event and we need to call setName with e.target.value. Now let's do the same thing for the text input. The value is text and we also need an on change. So we give it an event and call setText with e.target.value. So basically, e.target.value means whatever the user inserts inside the input. For the rating, as you can see, our rating inputs are of type radio, and each one has a specific value, from 1 to 5. Each input is wrapped inside a label. What we want to do is keep just one of these inputs, input 1 for example, and separate the rest. Then we delete the others. Above the input label, let's open curly braces. Inside that, we create an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is an array of numbers. We use the map method on this array, and we call each number num. Now let's cut the label and paste it inside the function. As you can see, we now have 5 numbers again, but they are all showing as number 1 because they are hard-coded. So first, let's give our label a key, and the key should be num itself. Then let's give the input a value of num. Let me organize this input a bit. We'll also add a checked attribute, which should be equal to rating, and the rating should be num. For onChange, we don't need an event, just call setRating to num, and that's it. Also, we need to remove that hard-coded number 1 and replace it with curly braces and num. So now, as you can see, we have all the numbers from 1 to 5. The numbers are attached to the input. Let's add a space between the input and the number. Just use curly braces and an empty string with 1 space. The nice thing is you don't have to create multiple inputs to make the code harder to read. And you only need 1 input, and you can adjust the array to add more or fewer options. For example, you could go from 1 to 10. But let's keep it at 5. That's all we need here. All right, now we are ready to create our comments. But before we actually display them on the UI, how about testing the app to make sure everything works? We need to console log the new comment, which is the object that we create. Let's go to Google Chrome and open the console. Now that I've opened it, I see an error. Invalid DOM property class. Did you mean class name? Of course. We know that in React, we don't use class for our elements. We use class name. So let's go through the code, find all the places where we've used class and change them to class name. Okay, here, the class, change it to class name. These are the first ones. Here we have another class, class name. That is the div of error and the comments, and this div comment card. Now we have still the error, so we have classes other places. Let's check. Here. There was the, I think. Oh, okay. These divs, rating display. This is class and this is class, so we change it to class names. Common actions and rating display, but we still have the error. That is a delete button and edit button. So let's refresh. Now the error is gone. So we changed actually all the classes to class names. Perfect. So because I did a console log of new comment, the result of our form submission should show up in the console. if I submit the form with all my inputs empty, I'll definitely get an error. But if I enter some info into the inputs, for example, name, John Doe, text, this is a test comment, and rating 4, for example, then submit the form, you should see the result in your console. As you can see, we now have an object with an ID, which is generated from the timestamp, along with the name, text, and rating. So our form is working perfectly fine. Let's create another comment. Jill Smith. This is another comment. Rating 5. And let's submit. Now another object has been created. So now we need to make these comments show up inside the comment list. To do that, we need to go to the div with the class of comments. To load all our comments inside this div, we use the map method. So open curly braces, write comments.map, and we'll call each individual comment just comment. Then let's copy the comment card inside map method. Let's save. As you can see, we now have 2 comments because I've already created 2, but the info in both comments is hard-coded. The reason is that we've got hard-coded data in our code. We need to make it dynamic, so let's do that. First, we need to give each comment a unique key, and the only unique item in our comment is the ID. So let's use comment.id as the key. Now let's erase the hard-coded name, open curly braces, and write comment.name. Do the same for the text, comment.text. For the rating, leave rating as is. Just erase the number and write comment.rating inside curly braces. Now you can see that the data in the comments has updated. Let me add another comment. Tim Donner. This is the 3rd comment and rating 1. There you go. So now we can create our comments and display them in the comments list. It's time to make our buttons work. Now we want to delete comments. To do that, we need to create a new function. Let's comment it as delete a comment. We'll write const handle delete. Let's give it the ID as the argument, and the ID is the argument because we want to delete the comment by its ID. Now let's write the line. Set comments inside set comments, and inside that put prev, which means the previous situation, the previous state. Prev.filter, and then inside that you can put C as the comment again, and then we say CID is not equal to ID. Now let's break this code down. Here's what this line does. We're updating the comments state using set comments. Inside we pass a function that receives the previous state, that's prev. Then we use the filter method to return a new array that includes only the comments whose ID does not match the one we want to delete. So basically, we're keeping all comments except the one with the matching ID. That's how we remove it from the list. Now we need to connect the handle delete function to the delete button. So let's go to the comment list. Here's our delete button. Use the onClick attribute, call handle delete, and let's pass comment.id. Now, if I click on a comment, you can see it gets deleted instantly. But there's one problem. The user might click the delete button by mistake. So we don't want the comment to be deleted unless the user confirms they're sure. Let's go to the delete function. Right above the line, let's create a condition. If window.confirm, are you sure? Now open curly braces and move the delete line, inside the condition. This way, the user will be asked before the comment is deleted. Let's test. Click the delete button. Now it says, are you sure? If I cancel, the comment stays. But if I click OK, the comment gets deleted. That's it. Let's go for editing and updating the comment. Let's edit a comment, const handle edit, open curly braces, give the function an argument of comment. Now, if you remember, we have a use state called editing ID. This is the ID we need to activate when we choose a comment with a specific ID for the editing operation. Let's set editing ID to comment.id. So we say if I click on the first comment, check its ID, for example, if the ID is 1, it needs to be activated for editing. Then we need to set name to comment.name, set text to comment.text, and set rating to comment.rating. Let's connect the function to the edit button. Go to the comments list, find the edit button, give it an onClick attribute, and pass the handle edit function with comment as the argument. We want to disable both the edit and delete buttons if there is an editing ID. So add a disabled attribute, set it to editing ID, and it is equal to comment.id. Do the same for the delete button because we don't want to delete while we're editing a comment. Now, what if the user decides to cancel editing? The user clicks on edit, but then regrets and wants to leave the comment as it is. We need to do something about that. For that, we create another function called handle cancel edit. Inside that, you need to set editing ID to null, set name to an empty string, set text to an empty string, and set rating to null. So now it's time to test our edit and cancel edit methods. First, let's create a sample comment. John Doe, this is a test, rating 2, submit. Now, if I click on the edit button, you can see that the comments data is inside the inputs, so we can change them. But first, we need a button for saving the changes and canceling the update process. To do that, let's go down to our form. You won't need to create a new button. All you have to do is delete this hard-coded submit, open curly braces, and say, if there is an editing ID, show save, otherwise show submit. Now let me refresh. Let's create a new comment, John Doe, comment number 1, rating 4, submit. Now the button says submit, as you can see, but if I click on edit, it changes to save. And you also see the info inside the inputs, and you can simply change them. For the cancel button, you will need a new one. So under the save or submit button, let's open curly braces and say, if there is an editing ID, copy this button inside the condition. Erase whatever is inside the button. Change the type from submit to button and simply write cancel. Give the cancel button a class name of cancel-btn, cancel-btn actually, and its color changes because this styling has been put in CSS. I've already done it. Now it's time to connect this cancel edit function to its button. Let's copy the name of the function, give the button an onClick attribute, and write the name of the function. Let's test it. Perfect. So if I cancel the edit process, nothing happens. Okay, now if I decide to update the comment, I'll face a huge problem. I update the comment, but you see that a new comment gets added to the comments. That's definitely not what we wanted to do. The reason is obvious. We didn't handle the updating method in our form. This form doesn't know what to do with the editing and updating process. So it thinks we are adding a new comment. We need to tell our form whether we are posting a new comment or updating an existing one. How can we do that? By checking the editing ID. That's it. So in the handle submit, right under the first if statement where we checked for empty inputs, we write another if statement. If the editing ID is not null, meaning there is an editing ID, you must save the edit, not post a new comment. So set comments, prev.map, and inside that we put C as the comment actually. So we say comment.id. If the comment.id is equal to editing ID, then you need to update the comment, and name, text, and rating are the values that we want to pass. Now the user is either updating the name, text, or rating. So basically, when you click on the edit button, the ID of the comment becomes the editing ID. Now this line checks if comment.id is equal to editing ID, you're not supposed to create a new comment. Just update either the name, text, or rating, and this is that simple. After we're done, we should set editing ID to null. Else means there is no editing ID. So we want to create a new comment. Put this new comment object into the else block. Bring the set comments line into the else block as well. And we're good to go. Let's check the result. I create another comment again. John Doe. This is a test comment. Rating 5. Submit. Click on the edit button. Let's check the cancel button again. Perfect. This time we'll change John Doe to John Doe Smith. Change the text to this is a test edited comment and the rating to 3. Let's save. Perfect. Now the form knows when to update, when to create a new comment, and that's it. Let's edit again. I'm gonna change the entire info. Jane Davis, hello world, rating 5, and save. Amazing. If I submit a form with empty inputs, I get an error. But if I fill in all inputs, my comments get posted successfully. You can delete and edit the comments as well. Alright, now that we have our application fully functional, it's time to solve a final problem. If I refresh the page, the comments and the changes I made will all disappear. That's not what we want. We want a more functional application, and we need to save the comments somewhere so they don't disappear after each hard refresh. There are two ways to achieve this. First, we can save the comments in local storage, which is a very common way to practice. Another way is to create a mock backend using JSON Server, and this is the way we're going to save our comments. We'll create a mock backend and store our data there. Open the terminal. Let's install JSON Server. Run npm install JSON-server. If we check our package.json, we see JSON Server inside our dependencies. That means we've successfully installed JSON Server. Now the first step is to create a file called db.json in the root directory. Inside db.json, open curly braces, in quotation marks, write comments. Then open brackets and leave it empty. Save the file. Open the terminal again and type JSON server -- watch db.json -- port 4000. So we're telling JSON server to look for db.json, and it should run the server on port 4000. Now, as you can see, JSON Server started on port 4000, and there's an endpoint here which is localhost 4000/comments. To make sure our backend is working, let's open the browser and run localhost 4000 comments. It works perfectly fine. You see this empty array. Now, if I go to db.json and create an object, for example, ID1, name John Doe, You can see the data in the browser, so our server is running and working fine. Now I have two terminals running. One of them is running on port 3000, which is my front-end React app, and the second one is running on port 4000, which is my JSON server and mock backend. The first thing we need to do is create a variable. We call it API underline URL, and the value should be HTTP localhost port 4000/comments. 4000/comments. Now we need to use another React hook called useEffect. So let's import useEffect right next to the useState. Let's bring it up above the handle submit. Inside useEffect, we create a function const fetch comments. Then we use the word async because it's an asynchronous function. And inside the function, we create a try catch block. So inside try, create a variable const response, await, fetch, and we're going to fetch the data from API URL. And if the response is not okay, throw a new error, HTTP error status, and then get the response status. Finally, we create a variable called data await response.json and set comments to this data. Inside the error block, we console error failed to fetch comments, then log the actual error. Now we need to call our function fetch comments and give an empty array as the dependency. Now we need to make a few changes to other functions. They need to be asynchronous, for example. Asynchronous functions let your code handle long-running tasks like fetching data without freezing the app. They allow other code to keep running while waiting for a result. So let's start with handle submit. Put the async right here and the changes we need inside the function. First, delete this ID because JSON Server generates a random ID and we don't need to handle the ID ourselves anymore. Now above this set comments, we need to send our HTTP request to the server. So write const res await fetch from API URL, then open curly braces. The method should be post, and the headers should be content type application JSON. So we tell our server, hey server, the body of this request is in JSON format. And finally, body JSON.stringify new comment. We use stringify because we need to convert the new comment object into a JSON string before sending it to the server. Then let's create a variable const saved is equal to await res.json, and instead of new comment, put the saved variable instead. Let's test it out. John Doe, this is a test comment, rating 5. Perfect. Now let's go to our db.json. As you can see, the data is saved inside our db.json and it has generated an ID. Name, John Doe, text, this is a test comment, and rating 5. Now let's refresh the page. Excellent. Now the comment is there. So the data comes from this db.json. Let me create fake data directly inside the db.json. I'll give it an ID of, 2513, name Dave Smith, and text, this is a test comment 2, rating 5. Now you can see Dave Smith comment. So the data is being fetched from this db.json. Let's erase the second one. Now we've handled adding a comment and sending it to the mock backend. We also need to handle delete and edit, because if I delete the comment and then refresh, the comment is still there. The reason is that we need to tell our delete and edit functions that we now have a mock backend, and the changes should be made there. So first, let's go for the handle delete. First step, make the function asynchronous. Then, inside the if statement, we await for fetch API URL and plus the ID. So, because we are actually deleting the comment using the ID, so the method should be delete. And that's all we need to do. Since we are working with a backend, we need to tell the function what kind of method this function uses. Post, put, delete, get, etc. Now let me open db.json again. If I delete the comment, it will get deleted from db.json. Now we've successfully handled the delete in our mock backend. Let's create two comments. John Doe, test 1, rating 3. Jane Doe, test 2, rating 5. Let's delete them. Perfect. Now for editing, we need to change some things again. First, let's create another comment. John Doe, test comment, rating 3. Now if I edit and save, you can see that the data changes on the UI, but it didn't change in db.json. So if I refresh the page, the changes are gone. So something is pretty much wrong here. We need to go back to where we submit the form. If you remember, we created this if statement to check if there is an editing ID. At the top of the if statement, create a variable, const update comment. And the name.trim, text is equal to text.trim, and rating, give rating no value. Under that, we send a request const res equal to await fetch API plus editing ID, and the method should be put or patch. We use put here, and we need to pretty much do the same thing. Headers, content type application JSON, so I'm going to just copy and paste it. And the body is JSON.stringify updated comment, which is the same. Then we need to save the array. Const saved is equal to await res.json. And update the existing comment. Let's erase this whole thing, name, text, rating, etc. and just put saved instead. Now if I try to edit the comment, you see that the changes get saved into db.json. Let me change it again. Test comment, test comment, test comment. Perfect. Very good. Now we have done everything, and our application works perfectly. Now let's create a sample comment. Dave Austin, hello, this is a test comment and rating 5. But I'm going to add another comment, but let's just use the lorem ipsum. Then I say Jane Doe, and I use the lorem ipsum text, rating 3. Perfect. Now Peter Jackson, lorem ipsum again. I'm going to erase a little bit of text, rating 4. Now this was the third comment. If I refresh, the comments are still there. If I edit the comment for Jane Doe, now I'm going to set the rating to 1, and you can see that the comment has been changed. If I delete one of them, you can see that the comment gets deleted, and we actually did it, and the application is working perfectly. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was useful for you. If you like this video, I'd be grateful if you subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and like my video and drop me a comment to support me. Thank you so much.